Glad to have you all on with us this morning. Let's take a look at the agenda and we will get started today. The first thing I want to talk about, and we do this every time, is the webinar basics. We're going to cover Usign, Jiff Sign, Logo Sign, Mock Sign today. We'll talk about Mock Sign and Jiff Sign a little more today than normal. And so we'll spend a little bit of time there, all right? The next thing is that make sure that you put your support questions in support. I don't answer support questions on the webinar. We can't do that. Although I do have a question for you in just a minute. I'm going to talk about support in just a little bit. So next is that your questions are important, but they need to relate to the day's topic. I want to do my best to answer your questions. Matter of fact, I usually go back and take a look to see if there was something that was missed in the chat log so that I can include that in the next week's webinar. I do my best to not miss anything, but sometimes the questions are so off topic that it's not that I'm not prepared to answer the question, it just doesn't fit into the flow of what we're trying to do. And so we want to make a really good experience for everyone that's on. And so that's the reason why it's very important that the questions relate to the day's topic. I usually don't have answers to questions concerning pricing questions or timelines or anything having to do with partners offers. We try to focus our attention on Usign, Jiff Sign, Logo Sign, and Mock Sign in this webinar, and we will do that, okay? The next thing, good morning, Teresa, Sylvie from Montreal, Kim from Tallahassee. Good to see you all today. And then we've provided for you a document, looks like this. Rose can drop a link for that for you, and that has typical questions and answers for both Usign and Jiff Sign, and we will be updating that very, very soon, okay? Because there's a couple of really cool things that are going on right now. One of them I'm going to talk about here. This is called Visual Marketing Academy, and this is available for you. And so make sure, Rose, if you have the link for the Visual Marketing Academy so that people can sign up, that would be awesome, okay? And the next big announcement is that we have changed and updated the support site, okay? So the webinars are no longer where they used to be, they're now here, and there's still some tweaking going on with that. There's still some things that are happening, but that change took place earlier in the week, and so we just feel like that this is going to be a really nice presentation of the information that you're looking for, okay? And this will put everything all together in a single spot. The webinar replays, other integrations, billing, registration, all that kind of stuff will be all in the same spot, which it'll be a lot easier to go through this way and than it has been in the past, okay? Yeah, some people, the announcement, Kim, the announcement was made about the Visual Academy, the U-Start last week. No, it wasn't last week, it was earlier in this week. And so some people had jumped in and taken a look at it. It's pretty cool. All right. Rob's asking a question here about the tab and the templates. I will we'll try to address that when we go to the dashboard, okay? If I can remember to do that. All right. The next thing is, this is the announcement that Rose made about U-Start. That was on February the 14th. That was a couple of days ago. And Rose, did you drop the link for the Kajabi, the Usign Kajabi account? Would you do that for me, please? I would greatly appreciate that. It's being asked for, let's see, by somebody here. Nilda asked that question. So there you go. That's the presentation there. The next is, and I'm going to leave this up today. It won't be in the next webinar, but the last week and this week, I want to make sure that I remind everybody to use this search button. You'll find the answers to a lot of things before you send a support ticket if you'll simply use that little search box on the on the users group, because there's lots and lots and lots of stuff. People have asked great questions, and there's been an awful lot of information that's been posted there. I'll bet in this last week I'll bet you I have answered the question about the background removal tool at least 6 times, and it has been addressed maybe 300 times. So let's make sure that we use this search box right here, because you'll find most of the time, you'll find what you're looking for if you look there, okay? Just really want to make sure that we remember to do that. And then I want to give a couple of community shout outs, okay? Abigail, last week we devoted the entire webinar to the background removal tool. This week I have posted about 3 information videos, very short information videos having to do with the background removal tool, okay? Community shout out. Dean had a great idea here, so I wanted to just share that with you because I thought it was pretty cool. He created this little birthday party invitation for his grandkids, put names on it. Just check it out. I thought it was a great use of the tool. I thought that he did a wonderful job of being able to be very creative in the use of the Usign platform, and so deserved a good community shout out. The next one is, this one was really cool. This was, Craig was giving a little love for how easy it is to use Usign, and he created a really cool looking little visual here, and he talked about how easy it was to do that. So that's a great opportunity for you to learn from other people inside of the community, because they come up with some really great and really creative ideas. The next thing that I wanted you to see is I made this post concerning Mockup. And just some things that I had been recognizing that we were getting a lot of support tickets having to do with. And so I posted this. Make sure that you read that. If you have Mockup, make sure that you read that post, because it'll help you to clarify some things. We don't want people to struggle. We want them to find the answers. But if you send something into support and you wait for an answer to get back, let's put everything in one spot right here so it'll be easy for you to find, okay? The next, I've been asking for weeks for somebody to post GIFs, and I had been saying, where's the GIF? Well, Gene posted a really cool GIF as a video, and he used Jiff Sign to create a video here. And y'all make sure you go over to the Jiff Designers Facebook group and check out the video that Gene did here. It was a great Valentine's Day little way to share love on other people's personal profiles. So it was pretty cool. You want to check that out. And again, this is one of those things, and I'm going to do a little poll about this in just a second. This is one of those things that Gene had taken Jiff Sign, and he had used Jiff Sign to create an MP4, which was a cool way to post this, and it worked out really well. He gives you a little bit of instruction at the top, and make sure that you check that out, because I want to make sure that you're using the tool. And I think sometimes what I've discovered is that people don't realize the power of the tool that they have. And so they unfortunately limit themselves on what they can do. And so you want to make sure that in the groups that you look for the kind of inspiration, take a few minutes every once in a while and scroll through and take a look at the things that people post, because you'll get a lot of inspiration from there, as Sandy just said, and you'll also get some instruction that might actually help you to create or duplicate the kinds of designs that other people are posting in the group. All right. The next thing is I'm going to leave this up today, and then I'm going to take it down after this. I did this last week, and I'll do it again this week. I wanted you to get a little inspiration for Cinemagraphs, and I thought this was a great site, 30 creative Cinemagraphs that will drive you wild with inspiration, because I looked through these. These were amazing. I really, really appreciated being able to find that site and share it with you, because I think that there's some cool stuff that you can learn from just watching that Cinemagraph. So that brings me to my Jiff Design poll for the day. So I'm going to give you a poll. I need your response in this poll, and here it is. I want you to answer with one or multiple of these numbers. Number one, I have created Cinemagraphs. Number 2, I've created MP4s. Number 3, I've created GIFs from images. Number 4, I've done all of the above, or I have done none of the above. Okay, so we're getting a variety of answers here. Cool. Very cool. All right, I'm gonna watch through this for just a second and see some of the responses here. All right, very good. Very good. And some of you may not have Jiff Sign. That's okay. I just wanted to find out where we were at here with the platform to make sure that I address the things that people are doing. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Thank you for that. I will go back and I will check your answers, and that I always use those things to help to develop future webinars. Okay. So thank you for participating in that little poll today. With that, I have another announcement to make, and that announcement is that Mockup Size has a new update today. We have gone from version 6 to version 7. So make sure that you download, and I did this just because I want to make sure that everybody understands this. And you know from last week that what you do when you, to get the new mockups in Mockup Size, you need to download the new version, because the mockups are loaded into the program. So make sure that you've downloaded either the Windows version, if that's appropriate for you, or the Mac version. I've had some people who've said, this just didn't work for me. Well, the reason was because they had downloaded the wrong version. So pretty simple mistake to make, and I just wanted to remind you of that. And also, you're going to need Adobe Air to run Mockup Size on your computer. So make sure that you are operating with Adobe Air, and there is not a workaround for that. Okay? All right. Any questions? I'm watching the stuff roll by here. So wanted to point out something else on your opening page for Mockup Size, which is where you get this information from right here. We've added this little feature that if you're wanting to get the update so you'll know when that's happening, said in the post that I made right here that we were going to make sure that we notify you, and then here, then over here, you have this ability to be able to grab this information from Messenger. So you'll get a Facebook message letting you know that there has been an update. So doing our best to try to get the information out to you so that you will know. Yes, Robert, all things are always recorded and they're always available. We covered that at the very beginning of the webinar. The Mockup Size update, check out the new mockups. I think you'll find these quite fascinating. I'll just scroll through these as in this little GIF that I made for you this morning. We've got billboards have been added. Cups, watches, a lot of new stuff here, okay? All right, good. And also, right there, t-shirts. Can't show you the full t-shirt design in the little window, but there you go. Okay. Then, question came up last week about Mockup Size and the size of the images. Okay, we're at the size of the images. Yes, Kim, thank you. That it is version. I think this new one is version 7. Show it on the screen here in just a second. But the mockup, when it is downloaded to your computer, this is the size of the mockup. And I'll show you this. This size is 2.9 megabytes, and it is 1500 by 1080. All right. And sometimes that's a large image. So I want to show you something. Because the question came up last week. Well, sometimes that slows down the loading, which doesn't help you for the speed of your website. I don't use the mockup directly that way. All right. So let me show you how I do use it. Okay. What I do is I drop it. Like I've taken the same image, the same mockup. I've dropped it in here, and I use this as my what do they call that? The featured image on your blog. And so this is my featured image on my blog. And I drop that and drop that mock-up here, and then I downloaded as a JPEG image, and notice the difference in the size. It's 196 kilobytes rather than over here, which was 2.9 megabytes. Okay, so that's a great way to address the issue. It does make the image smaller, but here's the thing. I want to remind everybody this. It's a lot easier to have a large image and make it smaller. You can't take a smaller image and make it larger, okay? So this is, and what I've done is I've taken the mock-up. This was my original mock-up, and I dropped it in Usign into the box that I use to create my blog post featured images, and then I downloaded it as a JPEG. Makes the size significantly smaller. All right. Are there any questions about that? We'll make sure we address that because that question comes up frequently, but we're across the board, and steps are really simple. I download the Mocksign from, I download the mockup from Mocksign. All right. And the answer is, this is not a compression here. I use a compression tool. I use a compression tool inside of my, my WordPress site. I use a compression tool there, but this is just exactly what happens if I take the raw image right here that comes from Mocksign, and then I drop it into Usign to create this image right here. All right. And then I download it as a JPEG. And when I download it as a JPEG, it is now 196 kilobytes, but the size is 700 by 355. Okay. That's how I do that. That makes a great featured image, by the way, on my my WordPress site. And then I do have some compression on my WordPress site. That was the question that James had asked earlier. So I haven't done anything. Yes, I'm uploading it to my or downloading it to my computer, and then I'm dropping it in as an upload in Usign. And then when I download the image, and I'm going to add text to it like I did right here on the side, I'll put that on the right side. Sometimes I flip it on the left side, and then it becomes a significantly smaller image. And then I put it in my WordPress site with a compression tool inside the WordPress site. Makes the image load very quickly. Okay. Remember, Abigail, right now, it's easier to download the size that everybody can deal with and make it functional. Okay, we're working through the issues in beta. Let's make sure that we understand that. Okay, so we'll start out with a large image. I'm going to drop it in Usign. I'm going to download it as a JPEG. It's going to be significantly smaller. All right, next user poll. We'll need your help with this one. Okay, next user poll. This comes up a lot. Would you like to have a webinar that is simply a Q&A session? And tell me yes or no. Yes or no. Now, I will have you submit your questions ahead of time because otherwise we have mass chaos. But if you would submit your questions ahead of time, what I'll do is I'll post something in the group that will give you an opportunity to post your questions, and then we'll address those in a Q&A session. We will announce it ahead of time. We'll make sure that we keep it focused. And if we have enough, I may lump them together as a group, but I just was curious if y'all had any input on whether you would like to have a Q&A session sometimes. It looks like a lot of people would. I wouldn't go as far as to do it every other week because sometimes we've just got things that we need to address. But I wanted to see if that was a possibility. Okay, sounds great to me. So thank you all for your input, and we'll take that into consideration and see what we can do with that. I will post a place for you to put your questions, and so that we can be prepared. Remember this, when we do any Q&A, and I have it happen here at the end of every webinar, when we do that, I always have to abbreviate significantly what we're trying to do when it is a live question. So we have to make sure that that's the reason for making sure that we have the questions submitted ahead of time so that we don't get ourselves in a time crunch. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Canvas for just a moment. I want to do something today that I have not done for over a year. I want to give you just a little refresher of the things that are across the top of this screen. And here's the reason. We have a lot of new folks. We have some questions that come up frequently. And so I want to share with you just the information across the top of that screen, because sometimes people forget that it's there and you don't always get a chance to take advantage of all the tools that are available to you in your toolbox. Remember that old saying that says, if all you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. We want to make sure that you know that you have a very, very complete toolbox, and there's lots of things that you can use and lots of ways that you can accomplish what you're looking to do with your with your Usign platform. Okay, just like taking this little trick right here and dropping the mock-up in there and then downloading it as a JPEG file saved a significant size to the image itself. So the last thing, and I want to wrap this up with this, and then we're going to open up Jiff Sign first, then we'll open up Mockup, and then we'll open up the Canvas on Usign. But the first thing I want you to see before we do that is just a reminder from the background remove tool. I bet I've answered this question 5 times this week. If you click on, if you're not clicked on an image, you're not going to see the erase tool. Frequent problem. I've made that mistake numerous times. And frequent issue. Make sure that you are clicked on an image. Make sure that you're not clicked in a vector image. Make sure that you're not clicked in a text box. And sometimes, and this will drive you wild, sometimes you're clicked on an overlay. So make sure that you're clicked on the image that you want to remove the background from. So if you can't find the erase tool, that's the reason. The second thing is if the erase tool does not load, and this happens all the time. If the erase tool does not load, then the problem is the image is too large. It's not broke. It's not something's wrong with the platform. It's the image is too large. So make sure that your image is under 2500 by 2500 and under 3 MB, that way megabytes. So that way you will be able to load that. I just want to make sure people remember that. This comes up so frequently that I have to remind you often that there's only 2 reasons why the background tool won't work. One is you can't find the erase tool because you're not clicked on an image, or the image is too large and consequently it won't load. All right? Just a reminder is all that is. Kim, thank you for that. I'm glad that you taught the class, and would be interested to find out how that went for you, okay? She says all but one. All but one had never heard of it, okay? That's a pretty common problem, Mike. It really is. So, all right. Then finally, just a reminder, and I'm going to change this to this week, but just a reminder, always begin with the end or your output in mind. I ask that question frequently. So what are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to go with this? That way we can figure out where to start. If you don't know where you're going, then you're not really sure where you're going to start. I'll give you some tips and tricks, and then I'll do my best to answer any questions that we have here. Okay? Jiff Sign. Let's take a look here. There you go. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. All right. Jiff Sign. Should all be seeing my Jiff Sign platform there. All right. This was what I did here. And I'm going to save that very quickly. And I'm going to save that as a GIF. This is a great way to, and I wish everybody would understand how simple this is to use. I showed you that little GIF a while ago showing all of the new mock-ups that were available in Mockup. And it's so important that you learn how to do that. It's a great way to be able to communicate information to somebody else, okay? This Jiff Sign screen record capability is awesome. How many of you are doing that while this is loading? How many of you are currently doing that? Are you using it for that purpose? Is anybody using Jiff Sign to do the screen record? You see, I've done that a couple of weeks in a row, actually 3 weeks in a row. It's a great way to do that. It's just really, really awesome, okay? And here's how you do it. I'll show you how it's done. It's very simple. Click on the plus button right here, and it gives you 2 options. You can upload a video, a GIF, or an image, or you can screen record. And the screen record just simply gives you a box. You put that box over what you want to do, you push the record button, and then you scroll through that box. We've done that now, showing you how to create, let's see, we've done this. The reason, Abigail, is really simple. I have it right here. I'm going to create a GIF with it, and I can post that GIF anywhere. I don't have to put it in a player. And so that's a great way to do that. It's a simple little walkthrough. As Kim just said, it's a great little walkthrough that will give you the opportunity to be able to show something to somebody. I posted this not long ago, the day we did the studies and reflections. It was just awesome that we could take that, put all of the images in it, and show how that by changing the angle of the reflection changed the look of the image. We've done multiple walkthroughs. This was a walkthrough right here of the new things that were there. Ryan, that's a good question. I've never recorded anything more than a minute long. I have had other people say that they've gone up to 8 minutes, but and it just, the cool thing about it is it just plays continuously. You know, you saw that when I did that a while ago with this image right here, is that I was able to, that just plays. And when it gets to the end, it starts all over again. And no, you can't record sound. You'd have to put it as an MP4, and then you have to have a player to play it. But this is just really simple way to give you a little walkthrough. There's no reason for an explanation. You just simply walk through this, and you'll notice what happens here. This, by the way, is a 30-second long presentation that I did, just scrolling through the new images that were available. All right, just a really, really simple, cool way to be able to send something to somebody. I've gotten to the point where I do this very, very often. When somebody's asking me a question, I can just simply grab the screen recorder, walk them through the steps, and then send them the GIF when I'm done. If it's a brief explanation, it's perfect for that. I don't need a player. I don't need anything else. It will go from start to finish and start over again, and it just plays continuously. It's a great way to be able to communicate specific things, specific little steps to somebody if you don't need to have sound associated with it. Then you could also do it as an MP4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take over here. So that's your screen record. All right. That's the screen record. And the reason why I'm not going to demonstrate the screen record today is because I'm trying to use just one application at a time. And in order to give you more than that, I would have to, it's just complicated with the webinar platform, okay? But the screen record is great. I would highly recommend that you grab that, play with it for just a little bit, and I think you'll find yourself using it frequently if you will do that. All right. Then this comes up a lot. This is the reason why I asked the question earlier if you were using images. And so we've talked about loading images. We've never talked about loading GIFs. And so I'm going to do that in just a second. But we can also upload video. So I can take a GIF that I have created, and I'll do that right now. And see, I'm looking at my my folder with my files in it, and you can't see that. That's the reason why it's hard for me to mock up some. It's hard for me to do some of these demonstrations while we're live here. Okay, so I'm going to take that same GIF that I just downloaded and dropped in the agenda, and I'm going to load it here. I'll show you the reason why I'm going to do that. So it's taking that GIF, and it is putting it in Jiff Sign. Now, here, I have this loaded, and I can, if I'm going to save it, I meant to save that, I'm sorry. Give it just a second here. And the answer, yes, you can post GIFs in Facebook. Taking a moment to prepare this, and I meant to save it. I'm sorry. Yes, I agree, Kim. It's handy to have a GIF because you can post it in various places, and you don't have to have a player. And the other person can see it, view it. It works really, really well. All right, this is a fairly large GIF, so it's taking it a few minutes for it to load. And yes, they play continuously, which is a huge benefit. Just to watch, if I'm watching the GIF on the screen and replicating the actions on something else, it's perfect for that. It's great to be able to do that. All right, there that is. Now, what I want to do instead is I want to save it. So give me a second for this to save. And we'll talk about a couple of the repeating thing is huge for me, Gene. That's just a big benefit. Okay. I don't have any idea how big it is because it varies based upon the size of the GIF. And usually if I'm dropping that in Facebook Messenger, if I'm dropping it in Facebook, I'm not really concerned about the size of it. All right, but it is slow for me to load here when I've got two things that are running at the same time. Except for, I agree, Susan, except for the fact that I also need to have a player for an MP4 file. And by the way, Abigail, I do use Snagit a lot. All right. Now, over here, when I go to the mockups, I can play that GIF inside of another mockup. And it'll preview that way. Not needing a player is probably the biggest advantage. Probably the biggest advantage that there is in places where I don't need where I'm looking for that. But you have the ability to be able to do that. There you go. In an animated fashion like that. Really, Jonte, I would agree with that. This is something that people initially went, well, I wouldn't use that. It's silly. And our impression about GIFs have been that they're kind of this little silly tool that people use. It's a very advanced tool that gives you the capabilities of doing really, really cool stuff. And I agree, Johnny, when I first started thinking about this, I thought, man, all I've ever seen have been these goofy, Jim Carrey type GIFs. And so I wasn't nearly as interested, but now it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. Now, Ellie's asking a question, how cool would it be to use a GIF in Mockup Size? And the answer to that question is we're headed in that direction. Now we know how to do that, and so that's pretty cool. And I know I've had from Bertrand that at some point in the future, we will be able to incorporate the GIFs into the Mockup Size mockups, which would be awesome. Okay, cool. All right, we're going to stop with the Jiff Sign. I'm going to go over here and show you the new mockups in the Mockup Size. So give me just a second to make a switch. And because I can't pop out my chat, I need to have a couple of window things going on here. So give me a second to do this. All right, can you all see my Mockup Size screen now? All right, cool. You hear where I can see y'all's questions. Resize that just a little bit. All right, good. Thank you so much for responding when I ask questions. I appreciate that. Now, we've had these mock-ups so far, and now we've started adding back here. And so you'll see here, I took the t-shirt tool in Usign, and I created some really simple little text to drop on that t-shirt design, because I wanted you to see a couple of things here. And I want to walk you through this as quickly as I can. Yeah, John, I had to look at it real quickly too when I got it. It's like, oh, this is awesome. So we've got some really interesting mock-ups here, and you can flip these around here. You see this little book mock-up here. And remember, all we have there is just simply right now, the mock-ups are simply, we're just growing this file out here. Later, we'll have it in a little bit better fashion, but just keep in mind the fact that we're still in beta and we're working our way through all of the things that are associated with this. Excuse me. But it took a little simple text, imported it right here, and then you can see what can happen with this. We got some really cool looking mock-ups here. This is a billboard. People like the billboard mock-ups, and so we have a billboard mock-up here. We have some other things. Sometimes they look a little funky when you have them out here, but they look better when you pull them in here, depending upon the angle and so on. Yeah, the Rose is talking about the showcasing art, and yes, that's a great way to accomplish that. And be patient. This is taking a little while to create all the mock-ups in here, but it's growing rather rapidly. I haven't counted this number today because I just got it. But I think this is really awesome. This is a great way to display artwork, as Rose was talking about just a minute ago, and Jonte as well. So that's pretty cool. We have the coffee mugs, and kind of corrected some issues with the coffee mugs. So simple stuff. Now, what you will notice sometimes, and we'll go back up here, I think I've covered all of these, or pretty close to that. What you'll notice when you go up here is, I'll find one that's stretched out, like maybe this one here. This distorts the image a bit. So what I want to do is I want to click on the reposition. There's only 2 t-shirt mock-ups right now. I'm going to talk about t-shirts in just a second. So I can pull this over like this and reposition this. And now it straightens the image up on the file. So if this gets distorted just a little bit, then that's all you really have to do for that particular mock-up, and it's only for this one. Okay, the rest of them do not change. You'll have to change them per mock-up in order to do that. So let's talk about the t-shirts for just a moment, because I want to make sure that everybody understands about the t-shirts. Very important that we make this make sense for everyone. These are great for being able to show, if you're trying to get attention. Remember, one of the purposes of mock-ups is the battle for attention, okay? Kim, this image right here is transparent. That's a good question, but the image itself is transparent. Gail, your question about cost to charge a client to create a mock-up, that's difficult because it depends upon where you're at. What you get done in Alabama may be different than it would be if it was in Los Angeles. So it kind of has to do with the market itself. Now, this right here is great for attention, but it's not what you're going to send to a t-shirt company. All right, I had some questions come up about that, and I want to make sure everybody understands that. You're going to send This is going to be what you're going to do, and you're going to take that from Usign and send it to the t-shirt company, put it in the t-shirt company's mock-up. And then for your client that is purchasing that, you want to use the mock-ups generated by the t-shirt company. These are for people to grab people's attention, okay? And there'll be more in the future. There's some tricks that are associated with the mock-ups, and so we're trying to make that work. Kim, did I answer your question okay? But again, we're talking about a t-shirt, attention thing with the t-shirts. Yes, Beth, thank you. All right, that's all I want to cover about Mock Design, but I did want you to see as quickly as possible the new designs, and some of them are going to take a little adjustment, but we had to get them out so you could see it. All right. Now this is a place spot on this cup, but see what happens? It looks like this here, but it looks cool over here. All right, just so you know. So don't go by this. Actually click on that image and pull it over here to see what it's actually going to look like. All right. Any questions about that? Are we all clear? Going to move off of Mock Design now and get on the canvas. All right. Thank you so much. Give me just a second to make a switch here. And get right here. I will not be able to see, probably not be able to see your questions. I'm going to have to use, I'm going to have to use my other computer to catch the questions. So is everybody good with that? Can you see what's going on here? All right, good. We're going to just simply create something very, very quickly. This custom size question came up last week. Can't figure out how to make a pin longer. So if you go over here and create a Pinterest pin from Pinterest, and you take the pin, it's going to be 735 by 1120. You can still change this. Go up here to custom size. It's going to remain that size, but I can make the pin longer if I wanted to, okay? Now the pin is longer than it was before, or I could make it shorter. Nothing's changed except for the fact that I have changed the height, the length of the pin. Is everybody clear about that? People for some reason get stuck on the presets over here. Now what happens with the presets? Take a Facebook image right here, and the presets are used for to see this image over here. So let me throw some stuff on here so you can see this. And we'll do this real quickly. Not going to be highly detailed, but I'm going to just give you something so we can see this. Okay, let's do an image on the background of this texture. And I want to reduce the opacity of that a little bit so that we don't get lost in the shuffle. And I can put some text on here. We'll just grab some text and put here. And I'm not going to do anything with it. But are y'all with me? Matthew, I'm not sure what you're saying. The preset functionality, I think it works really smoothly. But for somebody who's new, it may not. And I want to make sure that everybody understands how to adjust these presets. You always go back to the custom size, all right? If you want to change this preset. But here's what happens with the presets. If I go to preview, it does that. I lose that ability to do that if I custom size it, okay? Did you get that in vectors? I'm not sure what you're asking there. These were the vector images that I grabbed over here. I think that's the question. I think that's what you're asking. So when I'm here, I have the ability to be able to preview what that's going to look like. And that preview is really a great thing, particularly in this case where you're looking at Facebook, okay? But if I go up here and I change custom size, I lose this. Now it just shows it as an image. Is everybody with me? So in order to do that, I have to go back and make sure that this is here. Now, if I want to, because it's a preset, I can't crop it. If I want to crop it, I have to go to custom size. And now I have this little crop tool right here. And I can, when I click on the crop tool, I can now crop that image and bring it over here. And now it is that size. And I can use the crop tool with that. But I no longer have the ability to be able to see it as a preset. So just keep that in mind. The purpose of the presets is to give you that preview image that becomes important, okay? Now, Jonte is asking about the fonts. We've done this over the last 2 years. I've saved these fonts over here that we've talked about as we talked about them. And so all you do to save the font is you go right up here and you click right there and you will be able to save the font, okay? Any questions about that? But that's where those fonts come from. Everybody asks about these fonts over here. And all I've done is I've saved those fonts as we've talked about them in the webinars. And so I have them over here, all right? Yeah, pretty cool font, actually. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And this one in particular, I threw a pretty big border around the outside of the lettering so that it would stand out, and then added the shadow. So did a little bit of work with that, okay? You can upload new fonts. Beth's asking the question, can you upload new fonts? And the answer to that question is yes. You can upload new fonts. You'll upload them to your computer and they'll be dealt with as a system font. And the way you tell a system font is you go right up here to this drop-down menu, and these are all Usign fonts, okay? But when you get to the system fonts, they're right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to a system font, and you'll see what happens when I do that. Because here's the problem with the fonts. The fonts are dealt with by the browser and not by the program. They're dealt with in the browser and as they're handled by your computer. That's how they're built to operate. So when I switch this, I lose my ability to be able to rotate the font, okay? And the answer, Debbie, is no, you can't. That's called kerning, and you can't kern the fonts inside of Usign at this point in time. It's just not possible to do that. So highly recommend that you use the fonts that are available inside of Usign. That way, you're not having an issue with not being able to rotate that. Because when I switch to the Usign fonts, now I can do anything with this I want to. All right, grab it by the corners, I can move it, I can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Because they're handled inside of the program. The system fonts are handled on your computer. And there's a big difference between those. Yes, you can do that, Debbie. Jonte has given you instruction. You can put a space in between the lettering, and you can do that. You can actually space each one of these out if you wanted to, but make sure that you do it with every letter. That way, it looks like that. But okay. But yes, you can do some really cool stuff with the fonts there. But remember, when you're up here, when I go to custom, I no longer can see the preview. Very important that people understand that. The answer is no, Ellie. When you try to use a system font, I'm going to put something here. I'll show you. When you go to the curved text, you grab this, and the curved text is awesome, by the way. But when you go to that, you're limited when you try to use the system fonts. They're just not going to show up. See, and some fonts work better than others in the curved text. So unless you're dealing with a requirement by a client, I highly recommend that you stay within the fonts that are available inside of Usign. Okay. So we've talked about the custom size, the issues with the custom size as it relates to the preview. Let me go over here to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to eliminate that background. I'm going to grab this. I just want those three things right there, and I'm going to save that as a group for right now. And then I'm going to change this to a t-shirt design. T-shirts, by the way, everybody forgets this. T-shirts are under print, and they're Teespring shirt right here. So I'm going to change that to a t-shirt design. And now I'm going to grab that group that I had saved just like that and pull that in the middle of that shirt. That's what I had saved earlier for my mock-up. I'd saved something in the t-shirt design. Now, I want to show you something with the t-shirt design. Make sure when you save it, that you save that on a transparent background so that it prints on the shirt and not on the background, okay? Now, this is what I want you to see. When you go up here and you go to custom size, that will actually, while it's under t-shirt, while it is under t-shirt, it's under t-shirt design, it's going to download that as a 300 DPI. When you switch this to custom size, you can get a custom size here, but you want to make sure that you switch that to 300 DPI. That's another little tool people forget that's there, but you can switch it to 300 DPI right here. Again, 72 is perfect for the web. 300 is better when you're doing something in print, okay? Are there any other questions about the things that are on this toolbar up here? I showed you the crop tool, but you have to be under custom size in order to do that. Showed you the previews that were there. Sometimes we've discovered that people run into a little issue dragging things around and moving stuff. And if you'll hide the smart lines, that problem seems to come and go a little bit, but clicking on that hide the smart lines doesn't affect anything that you're doing, but it does. What it does is the only thing that it does is it changes when it doesn't tell you that you're in the center. Okay. When I turn the smart lines on, it's going to tell me when I'm centered up. Okay. It's not doing it right now, but because I'm in the t-shirt design, but I'm not in the t-shirt design. Robert, that's a good question. That's the reason why when we started the webinar, I showed you where the and maybe Rose can post it again, but you will find the knowledge base that's there, and there's everything you would ever want to know. All right. Kim, there's no search tool in the vectors. All right. Debbie's asking, sometimes I seem to get them grouping without hitting the group tool. Is there something that I'm doing? I don't know, Debbie. I'd have to watch. There shouldn't be a reason for you to have them grouped together because it's a manual thing that you have to do. Okay. And I can ungroup them now by hitting the ungroup portion of that tool. Kim, I still struggle with finding things under the vector graphics. I just do. A search tool would be cool, but I've gotten better at remembering where they're at. But I'm also old and I forget sometimes. All right, we're running up against the time slot here. I hope I've answered some of your questions. We've taken a look at some of those things there. Again, if you have anything that you would like to address, I'm going to put, don't hesitate to drop it in the group and say, Eric, could you consider this in the next webinar? I'll be glad to do that. All right. Matter of fact, this toolbar across the top up here, talking about that today, came from something that somebody had mentioned in the group. So we wanted to be able to do that. But I will get something together for you in the next week or so where you'll have the opportunity to be able to share with me the kinds of things you might like to do in a Q&A. With that being said, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place, doing exactly what we do every Friday. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.